Joe, I suppose to start, I know we were laughing there for a bit about, being 10 years ago, maybe testing your memory a wee bit, but 2015, I'm sure you have a lot of happy memories and a lot of memories to look back on.
Oh, I definitely do. I suppose I was around the brave while at that stage, but for the vast majority of the career, hadn't got any success. My first year when I did play, we won the intermediate final back in '99, but from then right through, there wasn't any more silverware really in terms of championships and that. So we definitely look back on it with fond memories now, without a doubt. Especially after the year before too, getting relegated to junior was obviously a hard pill to swallow for many of us, especially for boys that have been around a while and hadn't been in junior football before. So it was a bit of a wake up call for where we were at that stage. But then, I suppose, in hindsight, that was maybe one of the best things that happened to us. It allowed us to regroup and go again and blood some young players at that level. And it's probably worked. A lot of them players are actually still playing now and playing senior football now after promotion last year. So, a lot of fond memories. It was my first foray into, I suppose, management as well with it, and player management. Thankfully, I had the foresight to know that I didn't know a wild lot at that stage, and I brought in two experienced men, and Michael McLaughlin and Shane Murn along with me at that stage. So they were a massive help throughout the full year that year.
I suppose I have that down as a question for you, Joe, but you brought it up, so we'll speak about that now. The player manager thing, like it's probably not as prevalent nowadays, maybe as it once was. But how did you get yourself into that position, and how did you find it?
I suppose it's like anything. If you're around the club long enough, you get a job. That's about it. We were relegated the year before. I don't think there was too many queuing up to actually take us. But I kind of knew that there was still a real good bunch there. I suppose I was approached about it, and I said, "Yeah, you know what, we may as well." I suppose maybe it was at the very start a wee bit of naivety and not the bands on it. But thankfully, as I said, I was smart enough to know I couldn't do it all myself anyway. I didn't need that much, so bringing in that help. But I would say it's few and far between now, because the way Gaelic football's gone and the demands of Gaelic football, it'd be really hard to do the both now with the amount of work goes on away from the pitch, never mind on the pitch now. It would be a big ask for someone to do. Thankfully, at that time, I was able to. Yes, obviously, had the input and done the stuff outside of it. But when I got onto the pitch, we had two great lads there to make decisions and that. So that took a lot of pressure off where I could just focus on the playing on match days then.
And I suppose you mentioned about the '99 team. You won the intermediate in '99, and 16 years later, then as you mentioned, back down to junior. Was there many players still there from that '99 team, Joe? I know you said yourself you were one of the men that had a championship medal.
I would have been there. Kevin Morrow, keeper, would have still been there. Simon Green, would still been there. Marty McGuinness, I'm not sure if he played in '99 or not, to be honest now. Again, that's really going back. But he might have been. He would be another one around that age. So there wouldn't have been too many of us left at that stage. I suppose that was something that we kept saying to the boys here. I know I kept saying to them as well, is listen, when the final came round and the chance you got, well, it doesn't matter what level it's at, they don't come around often. So we wanted to make sure we grasped it, because I suppose if you had asked me back then about it, I thought this is just what happens. You play football and you get into finals, and then, as we said, 16 years then of nothing. So that went by in a blink. So I suppose that was one of the things that we kept trying to drill into the boys, is when you get that opportunity, you have to try and take it.
Where did the team come from in 2015 then? Joe, you mentioned them sort of being relegated, so probably going down to junior, you had a great chance of getting a run. But was it a new team that come along and just good underage success, or where did this sort of team come out of?
Well, it was a bit of a mix. We lost a few boys as obviously we get to the end. I suppose for a while there, before that, it was kind of about the same squad of players, and then We lost a good few then that year. Really, the kind of ones left was like myself, Darryl Moore, Stevie King was still about, Marty McGuinness, as we said, Ryan King, Simon Green, Kevin Moore. That was probably the guts of what that was left from that side. So I suppose as a club, what had happened a good few years before it was they really started trying to start at a real young age. They started the primary school program, from P1s up and starting to do that. So that was going way back then, and it was probably Paul Bradley done a lot of that. You see where Paul himself, he has an All-Ireland minor medal in his pocket. So he had the foresight. They see that we need to do something different. I suppose this group then was probably the first group that we really seen that came through that had done that program right the way through. So again, like the likes of Michael Sweeney and Jordan Kern, and them boys coming through at that stage, and Kevin Martin and that. So I suppose we maybe got the benefit of a lot of these boys having starting from a very young age, and they were coming onto it. And whilst they were young, we knew they were capable. I suppose the only thing that they lacked was the experience, but we still had that. I suppose a good mix of a few boys that were left from the previous panels still there. So it probably proved a good mix at that stage. And as I said, it was probably just a nice environment to first bring these boys in, because it wasn't a disrespect to the junior, but in the league there was a few games that we know we could have played there. We had the strength and depth, so we can blood them in some of the league games. So that was good preparation coming towards championship then.
And did you feel going down that year, Joe, that you were going to win the junior championship? Like, usually teams coming down, they're usually the favourites then to win the championship. So did you have your eyes set on winning that junior championship?
I won't lie to you, we did. We sat down, we had a meeting at the very, very start of the year. So myself, Michael and Shay got all the boys in. I can remember it was probably one of the few meetings that I had over the course of time where we actually sat down, we got the pens and papers out, and we basically were like, right, well, what's been happening that you haven't liked, or we think's not or is holding us back, etc. And so we tried to get rid of all that and get rid of all that stuff kind of early doors. And on that meeting we did say, where do we want to go? And to be honest, it was we want to go and we want to win that championship. And we actually said, I know it might sound a bit thing, but we knew we were capable, and we said we want to win the three local tournaments that we have in terms of the Neil Carlin, the league and the championship, and that's what we wanted to do, and that's what we set our stall out to do very early.
And you've obviously achieved that. We're maybe skipping to the end of the story a wee bit, Joe, but to achieve that, like to set that out at the start of the year and go on to achieve that, like that must give you real satisfaction.
Huge satisfaction. Listen, any team, as I said, on any level, you have to put the work in. It's very easy sitting in a room and saying, this is what we want. And, I'm sure there was a lot of teams sitting in a room saying that they want to win a championship this year, but wanting to win it and actually doing it are two different things. So, keeping them together, they trained really, really hard, and they stuck into the whole year. So, to actually have that put out on paper, but actually then go out and do it throughout the course of the year gave us a huge sense of satisfaction. And as I said, I suppose why it's great now, even looking back on it, that I'm sure a lot of the boys themselves are still looking back on it, because it gave them a taste for success, and a lot of them boys are still playing and craving that now at the minute. But I'm sure it was a great starting place for them.
On the final itself, I know he's got 2 early goals. Joe, I think he's got 2 goals in the first 12 minutes, and he's went 2-4 to no score up. So from early on, you had your hand on the trophy, one hand on the trophy basically, from early on in the final.
That was actually a replay. So we very nearly didn't get the hands on the trophy. Drum pushed us all the way in the first game, and I would say they probably came away thinking they should have won it, and they probably should have won it. So we maybe got away with it a bit in the first game, but in the second game we made a couple of wee changes. But we went at it from the very first whistle that day, and it seemed to click for us. As you said, we managed to get a real good lead early doors, which took a lot of the pressure off. Drum, to be fair to them, as they always do, they're a dogged team, and they did come back at us and give it a right go. But it was probably the damage was done early in that game, and that got us over the line.
The final whistle goes, you've won it. Joe, what's that like? You obviously experienced it in '99, but to be player manager and for the younger boys on the team and everything, what was it like at the final whistle?
Oh, it was brilliant. One and only thing, and seeing the crowd coming running onto the pitch and seeing the green and white everywhere. It was huge. Listen, it was huge for me. Whilst winning the final in '99 was great. I'll be very honest, and I don't have lots of memories of it. I was young at that stage, so it was kind of just you turn up, you play, and you get on with it. They probably didn't really realise the significance of it. Whereas this one, there was absolutely no doubt about it. I knew the significance of it, and especially as you said, just with the management side of it as well, and knowing what had went into it. Being that wee bit older, knowing that they don't come around all the time, you savour it a wee bit more. I suppose some of us that are a wee bit older, having family and kids there as well, makes it huge that you're able to get photos after a championship win with your own sons and daughters and things. So no, it was an unbelievable feeling, and something that we thoroughly enjoyed.
What was the celebrations like? Thoroughly enjoyed.
Okay, as you do, as we always said, if you won a championship, you got to celebrate, and so all we did. But listen, at the same time, we did it, and we knocked it in the head then quick enough because Ulster was coming around, and we set our sights on that, and we wanted to go and give ourselves as much of a chance in Ulster as well. So, once we sat down after the couple of days of celebrations, it was again sitting down to right, what's next, and what can we do next.
When you are sitting down at the start of the year, Joe, and discussing plans and targets and everything, is Ulster mentioned, or do you not do that until you have the junior championship trophy in the changing rooms?
No, listen, when I first met with Shane Byrne and Michael McLaughlin, and we were chatting about it, and I was chatting about the group of lads that were there. To be fair, they're not stupid either. They had done their homework and they knew what they were coming into. Between us, that was a case that we mentioned, whilst we weren't getting too far ahead of ourselves. We said, listen, this is a realistic opportunity. We can go and possibly win an Ulster. So we did chat about it early doors, but then, as everything, that's put to the back burner, and it's a case of we have to look at what's immediately in front of us first. And I know that old cliche, but what's the next game and getting on with that. But no, I would tell lies if I didn't say we chatted about it early doors.
And I think you had a fairly tough first game in Ulster. You only beat, I think it was Brackenville by a point, and then you got through the semi-final okay. You beat Templeport by 4-5, Joe. So those two games going into Ulster, sort of blind, I suppose, not knowing what to expect, not really knowing the opposition, like that must be a strange experience too.
It is a strange experience, but you know what? What an experience. Ulster, playing in Ulster is a massive experience when you're involved in it. Going and as you said, people that you don't know about, you're trying to ring around everywhere and pull in favours left, right and centre for people who might know them, and can you get names of people that you have to keep an eye on? Is there any video footage about all that type of stuff? So it's a bit of a scramble to try and do that, but that's exciting and that's part of it, and to be trying to prepare as best you can on it. As you said, we went to Healy Park, played Brackenville. You're right under the Harrods Road, and it's never going to be easy. And again, as a young group, they just played with no fear. They went in and they went at it, and that one, as you said, went right to the wire. So, that was huge for us coming out of that. The Templeport game, again, was a massive, massive battle. Once they came out, it wasn't as tight in terms of 1 point. It was a huge game. I can remember right in the mixing or the melting pot at one stage, and Ryan King had a man on his shoulder right on the sideline beside the dugout, and just and right in front of the stand, and it just sent everybody mental. Lifts the gap at a certain time, and from that moment, then you just seen everybody going, and I didn't think we were going to be beat at that stage. So they were two huge games for us. Obviously, then go into it was a disappointment of the actual final, but I suppose we were on the opposite end of it this time. So what we done to Drum in our own championship final, Rock Quarry done to us. They come out and they come out of the blocks really, really well, and we found ourselves massively down pretty early doors. So it was always going to be a scramble back, and something that we were never able to recover from.
Is that something that still sort of, I'm not sure if it keeps you awake at night or not, Joe, but there's not, you don't get many chances at an Ulster title with your club?
Okay. I'll be telling you lies if I don't think about it every now and then. And I suppose, again, it's something when I continue to pick teams, etc., that I speak about in terms of finals and things, that probably the worst feeling is just knowing we didn't give a full account of ourselves, especially in that first half. We seemed to get caught in the headlights a bit. Even personally, from my own point of view, I thought I'd never get going on it. So sometimes it's hard to put the finger on why or how that happens at times. It just seemed to be that we didn't get going, whether it was too much of a hype or what. It's one of them things that's hard to put the finger on, but it's one of them things that really you do think about it, and it's just the disappointment of we didn't fully show what we were capable of that day. I think that's the harder thing to take. Listen, if you go out and you give it everything you have, and you play to your maximum and you're beat, I think sometimes that's easier to accept. I'm not saying by any means that if we had played their maximum that we would have won it, but it would have been an easier one to pick if we had been defeated at the end of that, the only thing. But we just never got going in that first half. And to be fair to Rock Quarry, they were a real strong team. They had been senior footballers, I think maybe only 2 years before it or 3 years before it. They'd lost a lot of players to immigration and they'd come back. So really, they weren't a junior side either. I think they continued on an upward curve then after that as well, once they'd fully got everybody back. So they were a very strong team that day.
While the result would have been obviously disappointing, Joe, what was the build-up like for those couple of weeks preparing for an Ulster final? As I said, not every club gets to experience that. So from your point of view, you're trying to juggle being a player and dealing with your own emotions and being a manager as well, and trying to sort tactics and the opposition and maybe trying to keep the hype down. So it must have been a busy couple of weeks for you.
Okay, it was definitely busy, but you know what? It was unbelievable. You could take that every day of the week if you can get it. Our community came together, as I'm sure all do when they get to such heights. But they came together, and it was just green and white everywhere, between the schools, between the villages. People were painting cars, sitting out painted green and white. People properly bought into it. And that's easy to get the experience that and get that feeling of what that team had done for the community and the joy they give them in terms of an Ulster run. It's still talked about with loads of people in the community because it brought everybody together within that. And again, it was something different for them too, because obviously we hadn't had an Ulster run before, and so getting away to different grounds and experiencing that was huge for everybody. So listen, they were a credit to us. It gave us a massive lift and a drive throughout it. It was huge to be involved in, absolutely huge.
And what have the last 10 years been like then, Joe, from that win? Like, I know you were in an intermediate final then in 2017, you're obviously back up to senior now, so how have the last 10 years been, and what does the future hold, I suppose?
I suppose if you look at it on a whole, so 10 years from junior football, the boys are now playing senior football. So, whilst I suppose success is never in a straight line, and there certainly wasn't either, it's been going in the right direction. As you said, we had that 2017 final loss, and funny enough, we were talking about Newbridge earlier. That's who we were beat by, and they went on to senior football pretty soon after that, and look what they've done. Ours has obviously been a bit of a slower climb there, but it has been going in the right direction. Intermediate final last year as well, really kind of disappointing not to win that. I thought Faughanvale should have won it, and I'm sure it's been widely around the place now, but an unbelievable tackle from Michael Swinney that was given for a foul, and it goes to a draw, it goes to a replay, which we lose, so that could have been a very different thing for them and getting an intermediate title. But getting senior football back, for the first time in 30 odd years, was huge for the club, and getting that type of calibre of teams, coming to John McDaughan Park now and playing football. It's been brilliant. The boys have been really good this year. Stepping into that put in huge preparation. As you know, it's a jump from intermediate to senior football as well. So, you know, they stuck at it and they've been committed to it, and to retain that, both the league status and championship senior status for next year. You know, that would have been the aim at the start of the year, I'm sure, for the management team that's there at the minute. And, you know, as a club and as a fan now, just to suppose and cheer them on, I think that was huge, just to cement that, and hopefully every year continue to grow and continue to expose new people and new players to that coming through. And listen, that's where we want to be, so hopefully we can stay there for many years to come.
No, brilliant stuff, Joe. Good man. Thanks very much for that.
No worries at all, Sean. Anytime, sir.